He thought her silence was weakness. He thought her tears meant shed still stay. But when he replaced her with his mistress in front of hundreds of guests, the bride didn't fall apart. She simply looked at him, calm, unreadable, like someone who had already seen the ending of the story, and knew it wouldn't be him who walked away victorious. The moment I stepped out of the bridal car, I felt it, the shift in the air. A strange mixture of whispers, pitying glances, and stiff smiles. My mother's fingers trembled around the edge of her shawl. My maid of honor avoided my eyes, and even the wedding planner, usually overly cheerful and dramatic, seemed suddenly small and nervous. Something was wrong. I could feel it deep in my bones. But nothing prepared me for what waited behind the massive wooden doors of the hall that was supposed to host the happiest day of my life. A wave of perfume hit me first. Sweet. Too sweet. The kind worn by someone who wanted to be noticed. Then came the silence. A suffocating, heavy silence as every head turned toward the entrance. And in that frozen, breathless moment, I saw him. Ethan, my groom. The man I had loved for 5 long years. The man I forgave too many times. The man I trusted with every vulnerable part of me. He stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored suit, hands in his pockets, wearing the same easy smile that once made me melt. But he wasn't alone. Clinging to his arm, dressed in a tight white gown as if mocking me, stood Alina, his mistress. The woman I had suspected for months. The woman he swore he no longer spoke to. The woman who looked at me with a victorious gleam in her eyes, as though she had won. Gasps rippled through the guests. Someone dropped a glass. My mother stepped forward, reaching for me, but I held up a hand to stop her. My heart didn't break. It didn't shatter. It didn't even crack. Instead it froze. Steady, sharp, suddenly aware. Ethan smirked as if amused by my shock. "Lena," he said casually, "plans have changed. Plans have changed. Like this was a lunch reservation, not a wedding. Not my future. Not my life." Alina leaned into him like she belonged there. "You didn't really think he was going to marry you, right?" she said, her voice dripping with false innocence. Whispers exploded. Some guests turned away in disgust, others stared openly, waiting for the inevitable meltdown. The abandoned bride, betrayed, humiliated, crushed. But the meltdown never came, because in that exact second, clarity washed over me. Every late-night text he hid, every sudden business trip, every excuse, every lie. They all lined up neatly in my mind like puzzle pieces, forming an image I should have recognized long ago. And still, I didn't cry. Ethan frowned when I didn't react the way he expected. "Lena, don't drag this out. It's embarrassing for all of us. Just step aside and let us proceed." "Proceed? With my wedding?" I took a slow breath, feeling every eye on me. My bouquet felt heavy, but my voice didn't tremble. "You brought your mistress," I said quietly, evenly, "to our wedding." Alina scoffed. "I'm not his mistress, I'm his choice." A few guests hissed under their breath, but neither Ethan nor Alina seemed affected. They were too wrapped in their arrogance, too certain I would collapse or beg or storm out dramatically. But instead, I walked forward, slowly, deliberately, down the aisle that was once meant for me. Gasps followed each step I took. Even the photographer, who had been snapping pictures earlier, lowered his camera, frozen. I stopped 3 feet in front of them. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What are you doing?" I smiled. Cold, calm. And for the first time I saw a flash of uncertainty in his eyes. "You're right," I said softly. Plans have changed. His confidence wavered. Just a little. Just enough for me to see the cracks. But he lifted his chin, trying to regain control. "Good. Then go." "Go?" I tilted my head. "No, Ethan. I'm not going anywhere." A murmur went through the hall. My voice dropped lower, quieter, but sharp enough to cut. "You spent months lying, cheating, preparing this spectacle to humiliate me. But you forget something." Ethan blinked. What could I possibly forget? That I'm the one who funded this entire wedding. Silence. Alina stiffened. Ethan's posture faltered. I continued, each word measured. "The venue, the decor, the catering, everything except your suit, and your suit was a gift." I let my gaze drift over him. A shame, really. My lawyer stepped out from the back of the room, my final confirmation that everything was unfolding exactly as I planned the moment I suspected the truth 2 weeks ago. "Ethan," my lawyer said coolly, as previously discussed, "the contract for this event is in Lena's name. Anyone not approved by her cannot legally proceed with the ceremony here. If you attempt to, the venue will immediately shut down and you will be liable for breach of contract. The guests buzzed with shock. Someone clapped. Alina's face drained of color. Ethan's jaw clenched. "Lena, what is this?" "This," I said simply, "is me stepping aside just like you wanted, but not in the way you expected." He stepped toward me, grabbing my wrist. "Don't play games," I pulled my hand back, unbothered. "You played the games. I just learned the rules." For the first time since ID walked in, he looked afraid. Not of losing me, because he didn't think I mattered, but afraid because he realized Head underestimated me. I handed my bouquet to a nearby guest and smoothed the front of my dress. "Today was supposed to be a wedding," I said slowly. Instead, it became a lesson. "A lesson in what?" Ethan spat. "A lesson," I whispered, stepping close enough that only he and Alina could hear, "in consequences." Alina's fingers trembled around Ethan's sleeve. "Ethan, what does she mean?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. I turned away from them, walking back up the aisle with my head high, while gasps, whispers, and judgment swirled behind me like a storm I no longer feared. I didn't look back. Not once. But as I reached the exit, I paused. Slowly, deliberately, I turned my head just enough to catch Ethan's eyes, and I smiled. Cold. Final. Unmistakably victorious, because he still didn't know the full extent of what ID set in motion. But he would, very, very soon. And when he finally learned, He'd understand that the moment he replaced me at our own wedding was the moment he sealed his fate. He believed He'd won. He believed she would disappear quietly from his life. But while he flaunted his new lover, she rebuilt herself, stronger, sharper, unreachable. And months later, when their paths crossed again, he finally understood the meaning of her cold smile on that ruined wedding day, because the fate she promised him was about to unfold. After I walked out of that hall, leaving Ethan and Alina frozen in disbelief, I expected the pain to hit me later, the heartbreak, the humiliation, the shame. But none of it came. What came instead was a strange, icy clarity that wrapped itself around me like armor. I wasn't the broken bride everyone assumed I'd be. I wasn't even the angry ex-fiancé. I was something else, something I hadn't been in years. Free. I left my wedding dress on the bed that night, the veil torn from where ID pulled it off in the hallway. I showered for an hour, letting the water wash away the last pieces of the girl who'd tolerated Ethan's half-truths and constant disrespect. By the time I stepped out, wrapped in nothing but a towel and a new kind of resolve, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I wasn't going to heal quietly in the shadows he expected me to crawl into. I wasn't going to disappear so he could forget the mess He'd made. No, I was going to rise. And every time he thought of that wedding day, He'd realized that the version of me He'd destroyed wasn't the one who was coming back. The one returning was the version he feared without ever knowing it. The version unafraid of loss, unafraid of starting over, and absolutely unafraid of him. Within a week, I resigned from the marketing firm where Ethan and I both worked. My boss tried to persuade me to stay, telling me I was one of their strongest strategists. But I knew staying would keep me tied to a life I no longer belonged to. I needed space, movement, a new direction, so I took my savings, money I had intended for our future, and invested it into something for myself for the first time in years, a branding agency ID dreamed of building since college. I rented a small office, hired 2 assistants, and began accepting clients. Small businesses, local creators, anyone who needed help building a brand, a story, a voice. Work didn't just distract me, it awakened me. My agency grew faster than I imagined. Within 2 months, we were booked out for the season. Within 3, we had too many clients to handle, and I had to expand the team. We built campaigns that went viral. Companies doubled their sales. My name started floating in the business circles I once only watched from the sidelines. Meanwhile, Ethan had expected me to crumble. And when I didn't, something in him cracked. I heard about his frustration through mutual friends. He hated that people praised my courage. Hated that I had left the job before he could fire me to save face. Hated that his betrayal had only boosted my reputation instead of breaking it. And Alina, his choice, wasn't handling things well either. Their perfect little victory was showing its first fractures. Ethan tried to reach out twice in those first months. A text in the middle of the night, "We need to talk." Then a message on social media, "I hope you're okay." I didn't mean for things to happen like that. I didn't reply to either. Silence was the sharpest weapon I owned, and he felt every cut of it. Then came the day our paths crossed again. The day everything shifted for him, just like it once had for me. It happened at a corporate charity gala hosted by one of my new clients. I walked in wearing a deep emerald dress that hugged me like confidence itself. My makeup was soft but stunning. My hair pinned in a style that made me look like someone who had long outgrown the girl Ethan tried to destroy. I didn't come to be seen. I came to support my client. But everyone saw me, and so did he. I caught Ethan staring at me from across the hall long before he attempted to approach. His eyes widened, then narrowed, then widened again, as though he couldn't decide whether to be shocked or regretful or angry or all three. He finally walked over, leaving Alina alone at their table. She watched him go with narrowed eyes, her jealousy almost visible. "Lena," he said, his voice strangely soft. "You look different." "I am," I answered simply. He blinked, clearly thrown off by my calmness. "I didn't expect you to be here. It's a professional event," I said. "I was invited." He hesitated. "So was I." "Then we're both where we belong," I replied. He swallowed, glancing around before leaning slightly closer. "Look, about the wedding, don't," I cut in. "You made your choice." Something pained flickered in his eyes. "I thought you'd hate me." "Hate?" I considered the word. "No, you're not important enough for hate anymore." That line landed like a slap. His breath hitched. "Do you really mean that?" "I do," I said. "You made me realize everything I should have seen earlier. Your betrayal didn't break me, it rebuilt me." He opened his mouth, but I continued before he could speak. "And just so you know, that smile I gave you at the wedding, it wasn't out of shock or sadness. It was a promise." "A promise?" he echoed. "A promise," I said softly, "that you would face consequences." His jaw tensed. "What consequences?" I glanced toward the stage where my client, the CEO hosting the gala, was preparing to give a speech. "See that man? Has my client. His company is in partnership negotiations with your firm." Ethan stiffened. "And guess who he asked to design the branding proposal that will influence his final decision?" His face drained. "You?" he whispered. I smiled, the same cold final smile I wore at the wedding. "Me." He stared at me, finally understanding. The company he worked for relied heavily on this partnership. Losing it would send shockwaves through their financial projections, and through his position. It wouldn't destroy them, but it would destabilize them just enough for the board to look for someone to blame. And Ethan had given them plenty of reasons lately. I leaned closer. "This isn't revenge. This is life returning the balance you tried to take from me." He didn't speak. He couldn't. So I walked past him, leaving him standing in the middle of the gala hall exactly as he left me months ago, speechless, shaken, undone. Alina rushed to him soon after, grabbing his arm, whispering furiously. But he didn't hear her. His eyes were locked on me, on what I had become, on what he lost. And for the first time he understood. The smile I gave him on our wedding day was not the smile of a woman defeated. It was the smile of a woman who knew. His downfall wouldn't come from rage, or tears, or vengeance. His downfall would come from the one thing he never expected me to become: untouchable.